Now that you understand what an array is, how you can create the array, how you specify a data type, how you load the array, how you know the array size, and you can access it to display or to insert values, let's go ahead and learn how to create an array of objects. Now we have already shown you how to create an array of string values, and strings are objects, but let's learn how to create our own class and then create an array of those objects from that class. I'm going to create a brand new project, and I'm going to call this Array of Objects, and I'll click Finish. Now the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a new file to my package. Right mouse click on the package and choose Java, New Class, and I'm going to call this Teams, and I'll click the Finish. So it then creates a new file called Teams, creates a class called Teams, and I'm going to go ahead and type in one attribute only. It'll be team name, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a getter for it. Remember, a getter method simply returns the value of an attribute or something you're trying to get back to whoever calls it. And I'll create a getter, or I'm sorry, I'll create a setter also. The job of the setter is to take a value that is passed as a parameter, which in our case would be called team name, and then we take that parameter and store it to the attribute. Notice in this case both the attribute and the parameter have the same name. That's why I use the keyword this in front of the attribute. If you wanted to, you could actually change the name of this parameter to be something different, but I just wanted to make sure that you saw how the this keyword works. Now that I have my attribute with my getter method and my setter method, you might ask, why do I need a getter and a setter since my attribute team name is accessible outside of this file in the other file? Well, what if I came here and made that attribute private? That means it's only visible now within this class, meaning that over in my main method I wouldn't be able to access that team name attribute without going through the getter and the setter. This is a great way that we can encapsulate data in our class. Now that we've created our class, let's go ahead and go over to our main program, and we're going to want to create the array of objects and then load that array up. Now notice before we just simply said the array data type. Well, what data type do we want to make? I want to make an array of teams. So we specify the team name, we say that it's going to be an array, we give it a variable name, and then we say new teams, and we can specify the size. Now if you want, you could let the user indicate that size, and if you'd like to know how to do that, go look at some of the other videos that I've already posted. This says create an array called AO teams of type teams, and we're going to make it 3 long. Now let's go ahead and load the array up with information. How would I do that? First thing I need to do is to create a variable to keep track of the count. And we'll say as long as the variable is less than the length of the array, we want to do something. And we're going to need scanner objects. So I'll need to come back up here, create a scanner object. I'm going to call mine OS scan. Notice I put a little O, a little S, and then scan, because this scanner object is going to work with objects for strings. And I need to click on this button, which then says add the import. And if I scroll up top, you notice the import was added for me. Now I want to have the user enter in the information for the team name and store it to the array. First thing though is you need to understand is that there's not an object stored in this array of objects. All this statement does is simply declare the array, makes 3 positions for it, and says someday it's going to hold team objects. So you have to create the object before you can start working with it. How do we do that? Well, let's go ahead and do the following. In the array and in the position that iCount specifies, you need to create an object. How do you create an object? You say the word new and then you call the constructor. What's the constructor? It's the class name with the parentheses. That now creates an object. Then I could say, let's go to that same position that we just said, put the object in, and then put a period next to it. Because what is AOTeams bracket iCount bracket return? An object. And an object has attributes and methods. Period. And I could say set team name, and then this is where you could either pass it a variable or give it a hard-coded value, or in our case, we could just say OSScan dot next line, because that goes out to the keyboard and waits for the user to type something in. Whatever they type in, we pass to the set team name, which in our teams class says whatever we receive from this parameter or this method, we put into the parameter team name. We take that parameter and store it to the attribute for the object. So this says get data from the keyboard, pass it to the method as a parameter, and we already know that method will take the parameter and store it to the attribute of the keyboard, from the keyboard. If I wanted to, I could also have a for loop to print all that information out, and it would be better if I just copied and pasted, because that would save time, and time is money. And we'll just specify the array. Now remember, AOTeams.iCount, or sorry, bracket iCount says go to the array, go to the position in the array, and grab what's ever there. We stored objects in there. Objects have attributes and methods. So I could press period, and then I could call a method or attribute. So this would say, for the current object stored in whatever position iCount points to in the array, call the getTeam method. The getTeam method says return the team name. Let me go ahead and run this. Enter the team name. We'll type in BYU, enter. Enter the team name. WSU, enter. Enter the team name. USU, enter. It then prints off BYU, WSU, and USU. Once again, you can go back and add blank lines in your output to clean up the display, make it look a little bit nicer. So that's how you create an array of objects. Remember, the key is you create the array, and then for each element of the array, you have to create an object. Once you create the object, you then have access to attributes and methods associated with the object.